Love Under Construction. Chapter 7. Too Jealous to Endure. Cowan strode out of the container office with quick, heavy steps, cutting through the swirling cement dust and scorching afternoon heat. Inside his chest, it felt as though a ticking time bomb was counting down to an explosion. The handsome face that usually carried a playful, boyish smile was now clouded with frustration and heartache. The workers' whispers. The sight of Sai and Vikhai standing so comfortably together. The warmth between them. Those images refused to leave his mind. Dressed in a light blue dress shirt that was gradually becoming damp with sweat, Cowan climbed the steel staircase leading to the second-floor structure without paying any attention to the sharp pain still lingering in his injured right ankle. When he reached the unfinished floor, he stopped beside the temporary safety railing and stared blankly at the construction site below. The roaring machinery, the clanging of steel, the constant noise of the site. Everything seemed distant, muted, as if none of it could reach him. Only the ache inside his chest continued to grow. So I really am just a kid in her eyes. His voice was barely above a whisper. How could I possibly compete with someone who's worked beside her through everything for years? The hot wind blew strands of dark brown hair across his damp forehead. His grip tightened around the steel railing until the veins stood out on the back of his hand. For the first time since deciding to pursue her, Cowan felt as though he might already be losing.
Understand
Meanwhile, back inside the container office, the atmosphere had become noticeably quieter after the client representative stormed out. Sai put her spoon down on the table with a loud clack. Her sharp eyes, usually calm and commanding, now revealed a rare trace of anxiety. She stood abruptly from her chair. A long sigh escaped her lips. Even the loose strands of hair beside her cheeks fluttered from the force of it. Guy. She turned toward her trusted subordinate. Weren't you a little too harsh on Win earlier? Her voice attempted to regain its usual authoritative tone, but the concern in her eyes gave her away. He came to discuss the lobby redesign. Headquarters already mentioned the proposal to me beforehand. Guy simply shrugged. Leaning back in his chair, he lazily spun a pen between his fingers. Oh, come on, boss. I was helping you. He grinned mischievously. Did you see the way that kid looks at you? He practically wants to swallow you whole. If I leave you two alone together, he'll probably carry you off before sunset. Sai shot him a glare. Guy. What? Stop talking nonsense. I'm not. His grin widened. I'm being completely serious. Across the room, Vikhai sat quietly on the leather sofa, observing everything. Unlike Guy, he didn't tease. He simply watched. And what he saw was obvious. Sai was distracted. Far more distracted than she realized. A faint smile appeared on his face. He rose from the sofa and walked toward her desk. Sai. His voice was gentle as always. You seem unusually distracted lately. Sai froze. Only for a second, but Vikhai noticed. I've been here all afternoon, he continued, and I haven't seen you look directly at Cowan even once. His smile softened. Is something bothering you? Sai immediately adjusted her yellow safety helmet, using the motion to hide her embarrassment. Nothing's wrong. The answer came too quickly. I'm just stressed. This project has already been delayed because of the Singh situation. She forced a casual shrug. That's all. It was a complete lie. Because the only thing occupying her thoughts right now was a certain younger man with hurt eyes and a wounded expression. The image kept replaying in her mind. Again. And again. And again. Vikhai chuckled quietly. He knew perfectly well that she was lying. But he was too much of a gentleman to expose her. If you're stressed, you should rest occasionally. He patted her shoulder reassuringly. As for Cowan, he seems like a good kid, passionate, idealistic. Maybe he's just not used to the chaos of construction sites yet. Sai didn't answer, because deep down she knew that wasn't what was bothering him, or her. Vikhai exchanged a brief glance with Guy. Some silent understanding passed between them immediately. Guy stood up at once and stretched dramatically. Well then. He grabbed a folder from the table. Vic Hi and I should go check the disputed land area behind the site. He flashed Sai a grin. You stay here and enjoy your desserts, boss. Your face is getting darker from all this stress. Before Sai could respond, Guy was already heading for the door. Vic Hi followed beside him. A few moments later, the steel door closed behind them, and silence filled the office. For the first time all afternoon, Sai was alone. She slowly sank back into her chair. The golden desserts on the table suddenly looked far less appealing. Her thoughts drifted back to Cowan. His bitter expression. His sarcastic words before leaving. Headquarters' precious young master. The memory made her frown. That stubborn idiot. Did he really think he meant so little to her? A restless feeling spread through her chest, growing stronger and stronger, until she couldn't ignore it anymore. Sai abruptly stood up. She grabbed her radio from her belt, snatched up her safety helmet, and marched straight out of the container office. Sai searched the entire ground floor for the tall figure of Cowan. She questioned several foremen before finally learning that he had gone up to the second-floor structure. Without hesitation, she headed for the steel staircase. Her heavy safety boots struck the metal steps with steady determination. The sound echoed against the distant roar of machinery and warning sirens across the site. By the time she reached the second floor, fine cement dust floated through the air, forcing her to lift a handkerchief to cover her mouth. Then she saw him, standing alone at the edge of the unfinished building, one hand resting on the steel railing. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across his broad back. His light blue shirt was streaked with dust. For some reason, the sight tugged unexpectedly at her heart. Sai stopped about 5 steps away. For a moment she simply watched him. Then she swallowed, forced her expression back into its usual cool, intimidating composure, and spoke. Mr. Cowan. Her voice cut through the noise of the construction site. What are you doing standing here, inhaling dust and baking under the sun? She folded her arms. Your ankle is still injured, isn't it? Honestly, I've never met anyone more stubborn than you. The familiar authoritative tone made Cowan flinch slightly. Lost in thought, he hadn't noticed her approaching. Slowly he turned around, and when their eyes met, Sai felt a strange tightness in her chest. The playful sparkle that usually danced in his eyes was gone. In its place was disappointment, hurt, and a distance she had never seen before. He adjusted his white safety helmet. Project Manager Medsai. The formal title hit her ears like a slap. Is there something urgent you need from me? His voice was calm. Too calm. If it's about the lobby redesign, I've already submitted everything. He looked away. You can discuss it with your legal officer. The emphasis on your legal officer was impossible to miss. Sai frowned immediately. Her temper stirred. She took 3 deliberate steps forward, closing the distance between them, until only an arm's length remained. Why are you talking like that? Her sharp eyes locked onto his. And who gave you permission to suddenly become so formal? We're alone up here. Why are you changing the way you address me? For a brief moment, Cowan stared at her. Then he laughed softly. A bitter laugh. One that carried far more hurt than amusement. He leaned slightly closer. Close enough for her to catch the familiar scent of mint and cedarwood from his cologne. Well. His voice was low. Because this is a construction site, isn't it? Not some comfortable air-conditioned office at headquarters. His eyes met hers directly. So I'm simply behaving according to my status. A pause. The headquarters prince. Sai froze. The words struck harder than she expected. Because she knew exactly where they came from. The careless insult she'd thrown at him during their first meeting. Back when she'd assumed he was nothing more than a spoiled executive from headquarters. And apparently, he still remembered every word. You're still upset about that? Her voice softened instinctively. When? The nickname slipped out naturally. I only said that because of the situation back then. She sighed. We've been through so much since then. Her gaze softened. You should know that better than anyone. For a moment, Cowan's expression wavered. Because hearing her call him Win again weakened his defenses immediately. Dangerously so. His eyes drifted to her face. The faint traces of dust on her cheek. The loose strands of hair escaping from beneath her helmet. Memories flooded back. The day she pushed him out of the way of falling debris. The concern in her eyes when he got hurt. The way she knelt in the container office to clean his wound herself. The way she'd held him. The way she'd worried. But then, another image surfaced. Vicky standing beside her, adjusting her helmet, bringing her favorite desserts. The easy familiarity between them. The ache returned instantly. Cowan exhaled slowly and looked away. I'm not upset about what happened on the first day. His voice was quieter now. Not really. The wind swept between them. But today, he swallowed, and finally admitted what had been tormenting him all afternoon. I realized something. Sai remained silent, waiting. Cowan laughed bitterly. For you. His eyes lowered. I'll always just be the kid from headquarters. A newcomer. Someone who could never compare to a person who's known you for years. The vulnerability in his voice made Sai's heart tighten painfully. At last she understood. Everything. The jealousy. The cold attitude. The sarcasm. The hurt. It had never been about work. Not really. It was about Vicky. And the fear that she already belonged to someone else. When? Her voice became gentler. You've completely misunderstood Vicky. She shook her head. He and I are only. Before she could finish, Cowan turned sharply toward her. His eyes burned with an intensity she had never seen before. Gone was the playful younger colleague. Gone was the teasing flirt. Standing before her now was a man who had finally reached his limit, and who was no longer willing to pretend otherwise. He took a step forward, then another, until there was almost no space left between them. Sai's breath caught. His broad chest was only inches away, close enough for her to feel his warmth, close enough to hear his breathing. Then, his hands gently but firmly closed around both of her wrists. I'm not misunderstanding anything, Sai. His voice was rough with emotion. Everyone on this site is talking about it. They all say you and Vicky are together. They say you've been together for years. His grip tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt. Just enough to stop her from pulling away. And earlier, his voice cracked. I saw how happy you looked eating the desserts he brought for you. The jealousy he'd been suppressing all day finally spilled out. Every word. Every glance. Every emotion. Unfiltered. Raw. Painfully honest. And Sai could only stare at him in stunned silence. Sai's heart pounded against her ribs. The warmth of Cowan's hands wrapped around her wrists. The hurt in his eyes. The jealousy he was no longer trying to hide. All of it struck her harder than she wanted to admit. For a moment, the fearless project manager who could command an entire construction site found herself completely speechless. She tried to pull her hands free. But against his strength the effort was hopeless. Not that he was hurting her. Far from it. His grip was firm, yet surprisingly gentle. As if he were afraid she might disappear if he let go. Sai took a deep breath and glared at him. Let go of me first, Mr. Cowan. Her voice came out sharper than intended. Have you completely lost your mind? We're standing in the middle of a construction site. She glanced toward the stairwell. What if someone comes up here and sees us? I don't care. The answer came immediately. Without hesitation. Without fear. Without a single ounce of regret. Cowan held her gaze. And for the first time since she had met him, there was no trace of playfulness in his expression. Only determination. If you don't explain this clearly today, I'm not letting you go anywhere. His voice was low, steady, dangerously serious. Even if the entire site sees us. I don't care. Sai felt heat rush all the way to her ears. How could this man say things like that with a straight face? How could he make her heart race this much? And why? Why did part of her not hate it? When? Her voice weakened slightly. But Cowan wasn't finished. Not yet. Not after spending the entire afternoon torturing himself. Not after believing he'd already lost before the battle had even begun. His eyes locked onto hers. Tell me honestly. The question came out softer this time. More vulnerable. More painful. What exactly am I to you? Sai froze. The construction site around them seemed to disappear. The wind. The machinery. The voices below. Everything faded away. leaving only the two of them, and the question hanging between them. Cowan swallowed hard. His voice dropped even lower. Everything that's happened between us. His fingers tightened slightly around her wrists. The flirting. The hugs. The way you took care of me. The way you cleaned my wound yourself. The memory flashed through both of their minds at once. That tiny container office. The rainstorm. The closeness. The warmth neither of them had forgotten. Cowan's gaze trembled. Was any of it real? His voice cracked. Or maybe it was his heart. Or were you just being kind to me because you felt sorry for me? The words hit Sai directly in the chest. She stared into his eyes. And for the first time she saw something that made her chest ache. Fear. Not jealousy. Not frustration. Fear. The fear of someone who had fallen deeply in love. And who genuinely believed he might not be loved back. The realization shattered the last of her defenses. Silence settled between them. The wind swept through the unfinished structure. The golden afternoon sunlight painted warm streaks across the concrete floor. Sai slowly exhaled. For years she had hidden behind authority, behind professionalism, behind the image of a strict, intimidating project manager. It was easier that way. Safer. No one could hurt her if they never got close enough. But somehow, this stubborn, reckless younger man had broken through every wall she'd built. Without permission. Without warning. Without mercy. She looked directly into his eyes. And finally allowed him to see the truth she'd been hiding. Stop overthinking everything. Her voice was gentle now. Gentler than he had ever heard it. You really are such a child sometimes when... Cowan blinked. The sharp edge in her tone was gone. Completely gone. I've never seen you as some temporary distraction. She shook her head slowly. Not even once. The air seemed to leave his lungs. Sai lowered her gaze briefly before looking back at him. The softness in her eyes nearly made his heart stop. The fact that I've tolerated you this much. A faint smile appeared. You still haven't figured out why? For several seconds Cowan simply stared. His grip on her wrists loosened automatically. Hope, a dangerous, beautiful hope, began creeping back into his chest. But one final wound remained. One final doubt. And he couldn't let it go. Then what about Vic High? His voice was much quieter now. Almost cautious. You're so close to him. You understand each other without speaking. He knows your favorite desserts. His eyes searched hers desperately. How can you tell me there's nothing going on? To his complete surprise, Sai laughed. Actually laughed. A soft, helpless laugh. The kind that instantly made her look years younger. Cowan stared at her in confusion. What? Sai shook her head. Her smile widened. And for the first time all day, amusement replaced frustration. You idiot. The affectionate insult landed directly in his chest. You really are unbelievably dense. Cowan frowned. That definitely wasn't the response he'd expected. Sai crossed her arms. Still smiling. Still trying and failing to suppress her laughter. You've been making yourself miserable all afternoon over this? Yes. Of course I have. The answer came so quickly that Sai nearly burst out laughing again. And that only made Cowan even more confused. What is so funny? He demanded. Sai looked at him for a long moment. Then shook her head. Well. A mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. If you're really that desperate to know. She paused. Just long enough to make him nervous. Very nervous. Then maybe it's time I tell you the truth. Cowan stared at her. His heart was still pounding. His mind was still tangled in jealousy, frustration, and wounded pride. And now, Sai was laughing. Actually laughing. At him. What truth? He narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Sai, this isn't the time to play games. Sai bit her lip, trying and failing to suppress another smile. Then she folded her arms and looked directly at him. Win. Her tone finally became serious. What I'm about to tell you stays between us. Cowan nodded immediately. Fine. You have my word. Sai took a slow breath. Then delivered the sentence that completely overturned his world. The reason Vic High takes such good care of me. She paused. The reason Guy kept picking fights with you all afternoon. Another pause. And then. Because Vic High and Guy are a couple. Silence. Absolute silence. The wind stopped. The construction site disappeared. Even Cowan's brain seemed to shut down. For 1 full second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5. Nothing. Then, huh. His eyes widened. Huh. Sai nodded calmly. Yes. Exactly the reaction I expected. Cowan blinked repeatedly, certain that he must have misheard her. Wait. He pointed dramatically toward the office below. Vic Hyan guy? Yes. The Vic Hyan guy? Sai rolled her eyes. How many Vishais and guys do you think work on this site? Cowan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Wait. His voice cracked. You mean those two are actually dating? Sai nodded. Have been for years. Years. The younger man looked as though his soul had just left his body. His hands automatically released her wrists. His jaw dropped. And stayed dropped. No way. No. Yes. No. Yes. Sai finally laughed outright. The expression on his face was simply too priceless. Meanwhile, Cowan was mentally replaying every embarrassing moment from the past several hours. Every hostile stare he'd aimed at Vic Hai. Every challenge. Every jealous thought. Every silent declaration of war. And Guy. Oh God. Guy. That annoying legal officer had probably been laughing at him the entire time. The realization hit him like a falling concrete slab. Oh no. He grabbed his forehead. Oh no. Sai raised an eyebrow. What now? I made a complete fool of myself. He groaned dramatically. I spent the entire afternoon acting jealous toward someone's boyfriend. Sai burst into laughter. A genuine, uncontrollable laugh. The kind that made her eyes crinkle at the corners. The kind Cowan secretly loved seeing most. That's not even the worst part. She was still laughing. The reason Guy kept blocking you wasn't because he was protecting me. Cowan already knew where this was going. And he hated it. He was protecting Vic Hai. Sai nodded. Exactly. Every sarcastic comment. Every interruption. Every annoying thing he did. He thought you were trying to steal his man. Cowan covered his face. Please stop. No. Please. You deserve this. Sai. You were ridiculous. His groan echoed across the unfinished floor. I can't believe this. Neither can I. Sai folded her arms smugly. I've never seen someone embarrass himself so thoroughly in a single afternoon. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Cowan lowered his hands. And looked at her. Really looked at her. The afternoon sunlight painted golden highlights across her dust-smudged face. And suddenly, all the embarrassment, all the jealousy, all the misunderstanding, none of it mattered anymore. Because the only thing he could think about was her. You know. He stepped closer again. A familiar warmth returned to his eyes. You could have told me earlier. Sai scoffed. You stormed off before I had the chance. Because I thought my heart was about to explode. His answer came so honestly that she nearly laughed again. Instead, she shook her head. Honestly, Win. What am I supposed to do with you? The question lingered between them. And something changed. The teasing faded. The laughter softened. The atmosphere grew quieter. Warmer. More intimate. Cowan reached for her hands again. This time she didn't pull away. He carefully lifted them and pressed them against his chest. Immediately Sai felt it. His heartbeat. Fast. Strong. Completely out of control. Just like the man standing before her. Right now. His voice was low. Gentle. Maybe we're not officially anything yet. Sai's breath caught. But I'm done being just your junior. His gaze never left hers. I'm done being just the headquarters guy. The golden sunlight reflected in his eyes. And for the first time since they met, there was no teasing. No flirting. No jokes. Only sincerity. Only truth. I love you, Sai. The words landed softly, yet carried enough weight to shake her entire world. I've loved you since the first day we met. His smile was small, almost nervous, even when you were yelling at everyone in that meeting room. Sai couldn't help rolling her eyes. That's your romantic memory? Absolutely. He grinned. It was terrifying. She smacked his arm lightly. Cowan laughed. Then his expression softened again. And every day after that. His voice lowered. I fell a little harder. Watching you work. Watching you take care of people. Watching you pretend to be tougher than you really are. The confession wrapped around her heart. Warm. Steady. Impossible to ignore. Sai could feel her face growing hotter by the second. Her ears. Her cheeks. Everything. The feared project manager of the construction site suddenly felt completely defenseless. Against one 25-year-old man. How ridiculous. You talk too much. She tried to sound stern. Tried. Failed miserably. A smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Cowan immediately noticed. And smiled wider. There it is. What? That smile. Sai glared at him. Which only made him grin more. In case you've forgotten, she said, trying to recover some dignity, I'm still your boss on this site. Yes, boss. And I'm very strict. Yes, boss. The work here is exhausting. Yes, boss. You might not survive it. His grin became impossible to control. I'll survive. Confident, aren't you? Very. Why? Cowan leaned closer. Close enough that his answer brushed softly against her ear. Because no matter how many buildings we construct. His voice was warm, tender. And no matter how many projects come after this one. He smiled. I plan on staying right here. A pause. Managing the site. Another pause. And managing your heart for the rest of my life. Sai's face instantly turned crimson. Cowan. He laughed. A bright, carefree sound that echoed across the unfinished floor. Unable to hide her embarrassment any longer, Sai turned sharply and headed toward the staircase. Get back to work. Yes, boss. Stop smiling like that. I can't help it. You are impossible. And you like me anyway. Keep talking and I'll cut your budget. Cowan laughed even harder. Then followed after her with an enormous grin on his face. Like a loyal bodyguard. Or perhaps, like a man who had finally won the first real battle for the woman he loved. Below them, the sounds of construction continued as usual. Steel clanged. Machinery roared. Workers shouted instructions. Yet somewhere amid the dust, noise and chaos of the construction site, two hearts had quietly moved closer together. And though the misunderstanding had finally been cleared away, the true challenges waiting ahead were only just beginning.